Are you ready to move on to our final series here, which is Suns Clippers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thoughts on this series?
Okay, so Paul George looms large. That's the key. All indications are that he's. We haven't heard any indications he will play. I would say it's safe to assume he will not, and that if he does, he will be compromised. And so the Clippers in all non-Paul George lineups have a minus 4.3 net rating. So you're starting behind, essentially. I think home court advantage, we haven't even talked about that at all in any of these series, is helpful for the Suns. I think that the Clippers do not have a clear way to exploit DeAndre Ayton in space, which would be something you might try to do if you had the personnel to do that. Were you another team? And so while I concede it's possible that Kawhi could just be the best player on the floor, even one that includes Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, I don't think he can do that for a whole series. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, and then I would really change my predicted outcome. But I just think the Clippers, I mean, it's like, how complicated do I need to get beyond saying they don't have Paul George? That's a huge deal. And the personnel around them suddenly like don't look all that capable of exploiting a center like you thought that they would be when they put together this ridiculous, everybody is a combo forward team that just, that just doesn't seem like that version of the Clippers is going to exist or be able to capitalize on a big guy. So that's my zoomed out view. Where do you want to go? You want to talk about like what the Suns on offense can do? What the where do we need to go next to flesh this out?
I think a lot of people are going to focus on the lack of sample with Kevin Durant and the Suns' best players. They have just, when the top four guys are on the court, they have destroyed opponents. The defense with Kevin Durant and DeAndre Ayton has been fantastic during those minutes, and I think that that should hold up against the Clippers, who, even whether they're going to play big or small, like the Ayton Durant front line just absolutely positively works. What I am curious about is, and I don't know how much this actually matters, but just like Kevin Durant is still new. And so if you're going to pull some of the Suns' like best players off the court and like leave him on, which you're going to do at some point, you're going to pull Devin Booker, for instance, and Kevin Durant are going to be staggered for some stretch of this game. And yes, you can always play him with CP3 or Ayton, but the minutes when Kevin Durant has played without Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns offense ranks in the 5th percentile. The minutes when Kevin Durant plays without DeAndre Ayton, the Suns offense ranks in the 6th percentile. And so there are different ways to look at it. And I think the biggest one is Phoenix's depth actually an issue in this series? Because you get into their 4 players, you trust them all, but like who's their 5th? And I think Josh Okogie and Torrey Craig, like those are the clear answers. Can Josh Okogie be played off the floor? He's going to need to hit enough threes. I know he can drive it, but he's going to need to hit enough threes against the Clippers defense. It's going to be the same for Torrey Craig. What type of series do you get from Cam Payne? I think, and I don't mean, I think in a Okogie, or let's go their bench. So a Craig or a Cameron Payne, they can have a larger impact on the series. But I'm almost at the point where like the reserve that I just trust the most, that I think what he does will scale and you know what you're going to get for him, is just the backup 5, where it's Landale or Biyombo. And that's not to say that they're game changers. It's just the state of when you start to get past the Suns' 4 players, the uncertainty is such on at least one end of the floor. And I think a lot of it's offense, to be honest with you. But you can even have questions about their defensive depth. I'm just very much wondering if that becomes an issue during the minutes, where not even just we have all 4 guys on the court, but like how many minutes are all 4 of your best players going to play together in a single game? Because you're going to need to stagger it a little bit. And how vulnerable does that make you? Now, you're definitely not as vulnerable as if Paul George was healthy. And so you have that going for you. So maybe this is more of a longer term playoff question. How do you sort of feel about that?
I just, as you're mentioning names of guys that are going to factor in, the first thing I thought of is, well, so I guess Okogie or Craig is going to be the guy to guard Kawhi, because you probably don't want it to be Durant. And so, yeah, like that seems like a problem. What do we do with that? And then I kind of flip it, and it's like, well, Kawhi's going to have to guard somebody. Kawhi might have to guard Durant. Just flipping it the other way, Kawhi may have to guard Booker. And maybe he can do that for a full series. I don't know, but I don't feel like this is a series where you can spare Kawhi. And so I have concerns about him holding up, having to be the be all end all on both ends. I think your point about the Suns, like iffy depth generally is right. I just don't know how many guys they need to find beyond their big four. It's a different question deeper in the playoffs, but against this Clippers team, I don't know how deep you really need to be if your top four are better than the other team's like top one. Because after Kawhi, I think Batum is a lock to play a lot. I mean, and then what? Russell Westbrook's going to play a lot. I don't feel awesome about that if I'm the Clippers, even though he has everybody. Obligatory mention. He's been better with the Clippers than he was with the Lakers. He's phased out some of the worst things he did. I still just like the fact that he can't shoot, the fact that he's spacey off the ball defensively. Those are big problems in the playoffs against an offense that, by the way, and I wanted to get to this earlier. The Suns are using Kevin Durant differently. Like, he is not doing a lot of pick and roll. He is not doing a lot of isolation. They have dramatically scaled up his off-ball touches. So I mean, that just speaks to his scalability and the way that you could put him into any offense and he's never going to cause a problem and he'll only make it better. But I mean, I just don't see how the Clippers both slow down the basic pick and roll stuff that the Suns can run with, again, assuming you got your best guys on the floor, and also keep track of Durant off the ball. If that's what ends up being kind of the go-to, the best you can do is, well, we're just going to leave Okogie in the corner and we'll sag off him. Like we mentioned in the Cavs series, if Okoro were out there. I don't know if, I mean, you got one move, you got one bullet to fire, I think, defensively, if you're the Clippers, who've been a bad defense all year, by the way. And I just don't see, so whatever depth issues the Suns have, I think they're more profound for the Clippers in terms of, not necessarily just looking, Norman Powell is going to come off the bench and score. And, they're maybe Robert Covington will do something and Zubats might just, overpower Ayton a little bit. But I'm more concerned with the Clippers having enough real playable, difference makers than I am with the Suns, because the Suns high end guys are just so good.
I do wonder if with Russ and Norman Powell, they can win the rim pressure free throw battle more. And the Suns,
well, you win the rim pressure battle against the Suns all the time. Like that's, they don't.
The Clippers are in the same boat. Like, these are two teams that just inherently, before the Russ trade specifically, and even after it, they weren't generating a ton. They don't get to the rim a bunch. The Suns were actually post trade deadline. There's so much noise in here. 30th in opponent free throw attempt rate. And so like that could help the Clippers if they're able to, get buckets that way. But I don't know that I trust Russ with his turnovers in this series. And I would agree with you. But before I ask my question about the Clippers, is this a DeAndre Ayton series? And I think David at the 4-Point Play on Twitter posted a great thread about how they've been using him differently. He's been hanging out in the dunker spot more. I noted this on a previous pod, though. I think it was a solo one. I don't think it was with you. The bailout feels like when he's catching the ball, like if he's setting high screens or if he's just not operating near the basket, it feels like he's more inclined to bail out since the Kevin Durant trade when he's on the floor with his like star players. And it's felt like more pronounced with Kevin Durant on the court than if he's not. I don't know if that's a mindset thing or if it's something to worry about, because the Clippers can play him a bunch of different ways. We're like, all right, putting him in the dunker spot is fine. I think Zubats can handle that. And if you want to go small and it's like Robert Covington or Nick Batum there, they're not. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Man. We haven't even talked about Terrence Mann. I mean, he's
I think he's absolutely monstrous in this series, because when you talk about Clippers secondary ball handlers, people immediately go to Norman Powell. They immediately go to Russell Westbrook in addition to Kawhi. They even go to Batum. It's like, no, it's like Terrence Mann is like the guy that would be. I understand the other guys need to do that, but like Terrence Mann is super important to that. But I do think that the Clippers might be like, even without Paul George and the trickle up effect it has with how their defensive coverages are going to change. I don't know if this is a DeAndre Ayton series for me. I think in theory, if they go small, you can say, well, no, DeAndre Ayton can just mash as a play finisher, and he might. But again, the bailout stuff to me, when he's not in the dunker spot, is real. And the Suns can do all this other stuff. You mentioned Kevin Durant off ball, the Timeline guys, the podcast, fantastic podcast. Check them out on Blue Wire as well. They've talked a lot about just like the double drag action has just been absolutely killer. So I understand it, but just like, and I think DeAndre Ayton can have a terrible series and the Suns still win. I'm just curious as to, is this a better DeAndre Ayton series? Like, are the Clippers a better matchup for Ayton than some of the other opponents that the Suns might have to face, or is this a worse one for him?
So I think the centers are really connected here to me, and it's complicated.
This is not a Mason Plumlee series. Sorry to interrupt. I'm calling it right now. It's not a Mason Plumlee series.
Every series is a Mason Plumlee series. I think So Zubats is really important to the Clippers, and I think you probably want to keep him on the floor as much as you can, which again is surprising to some extent because I feel like the Clippers, saw what they did to Rudy Gobert with 5-out looks and kind of built a roster in a lot of ways that was designed to be able to replicate that. And I just don't think that, so that version of the team this year would be, I guess, like Man, Westbrook, maybe Kawhi, Covington, Batum, because Marcus Morris just doesn't play anymore. Maybe you put him out there and you take Russ off the floor, whatever. I don't think that's a lineup that Ayton has trouble with defensively necessarily. So I guess in that sense, this is an Ayton series to me. And I think he's probably going to be fine / do very well because you need him out there for Zubats just to have some size. And I think you probably are going to be okay getting away with putting him out there against if, because it's an if, I don't know if they will, if the Clippers downsize, because they might just play Plumlee instead. So, I mean, like, is it possible that Ayton just, as usual, just refuses to dunk anything and doesn't play with enough force and doesn't capitalize on the Clippers if they're smaller or is not aggressive in the dunker spot? Yeah, that's always in play, I think, for him. But I don't feel like this is the type of series where the Suns are going to have to think about, maybe we got to get him off the floor. If only because they don't have anybody else to play that's nearly as good as him.
Well, that wasn't what I don't think that he could be played off the floor. To be clear,
No,
could go. This might be the series though. If the Clippers downsize, if he wanted to try Kevin Durant at the 5,
maybe.
Could.
I just don't think you lose much. I mean, like to your point, Westbrook will put pressure on the rim. Kawhi will draw fouls. Like there are ways for the Clippers to make it hard to play a conventional center. But I think the Clippers are going to play a conventional center like a lot. So I think Ayton is actually. I don't want to say he's really important just because if you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on your team, like those guys are just more important. So, but I think I think he should have a good series. I think there will be opportunities for him to contribute on both ends, regardless of how the Clippers, kind of field their lineups.
I'm asking this question because I think it's a real question, and maybe it's not in the Clippers locker room. Who does Kawhi Leonard, who should he guard? Do you want to hear my answer? I think my answer might be contrarian.
Honestly, I think I'm putting him on Devin Booker.
Do it.
And I just think it's because nobody can do anything with Kevin Durant, so you might as well put him on the guy that he might be able to overpower as much as anything. So, but all that is the crux. That is one of the, not the crux, but it's a crucial point in the series. He's going to have to guard somebody. I think if you hide him somewhere, you're just copping out. Like you're dead in the water. So he's going to have to take on a major responsibility. Is it Booker for you too, that he has to guard?
Yes, because my reasoning is, and I don't think if you put Kawhi on Devin Booker, I don't think Kevin Durant will be stashed off the ball as much. I want to make that clear. But because of how much Devin Booker does move away from the ball, I think the best bet is to go with Kawhi there. And I would go the route of, we're going to throw a bigger or stocky body at Durant. I know, is it Batum? Does this become a Marcus Morris series just because of his build? Do you think Covington could try? Do you just say, fuck it, we're just going to bet on Russell Westbrook being amped up and we're going to try and like put him against Kevin Durant and just see what happens? I'm being ridiculous there. That'd be really funny though.
I would pay a premium to see that.
But I am, because of Devin Booker's familiarity within the offense, because I know Kevin Durant is scalable, but Devin Booker is scalable in a way where there's like off-ball mobility, where if he doesn't touch the ball, like he can change the possession. I don't view Kevin Durant as Kevin Durant's existence can change the way you defend a possession, but Devin Booker's off-ball movement is going to change it more. And so I would put him on Booker. I think the counter argument would be, well, have Kawhi on KD, because if Kevin Durant is stationary for more possessions, does that allow Kawhi to sort of rove? You're not roving from Kevin Durant. Like, if anything, Kevin Durant will just take Kawhi out of the play. And so that's why I would have Kawhi on Devin Booker. But I don't know if that's fair to have Kawhi do, where there's been a lot of talk about his defensive decline. I think he could have been all defense based off what he's done since December. Like, I don't think that would be absurd to say. The Clippers defense has not been especially great all the time, but like, he is still, I would say, more that dude than not that dude.
Well, and just like, if not him, who? If Kawhi is not taking it, like, there's just not a lot of great options elsewhere. I mean, the Clippers do have, like, Batum is a good defensive player. As he's limited, he's not nearly. I mean, he's older. He's just not going to be able to stay in front of those guys consistently. That's another reason I think Zubats is going to play a lot, is because there will be some blow bys and some decent looks where you're just going to need somebody big around the rim to hopefully prevent the layup parade. But yeah, I think Booker is the right choice. I just like Kawhi has such a heavy lift in this series, because I think the best thing you can do defending Durant, and this would be a reason to not have him on Durant, is to deny the ball. And it's exhausting if you're just face guarding a guy like that and trying to deny the catch. Because once Durant's got the ball, you're not going to make him shorter as a defender. You can get into his space, but and Kawhi, Kawhi's an all-time wing defender. Not necessarily right now, but I just don't think there's a lot you can do once Durant has it in his spot. And so it would just wear him down too much to be sprinting around, face guarding, trying to keep Durant from catching it. And then you're letting Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton mess around in advantage situations while you're chasing Durant. It's just tough. I mean, can we just get to the picks now? I think we've just angled towards it.
I was going to say, this is a series where when you look at how they match up, the Clippers have more options than the Suns and also less solutions.
Right. Which is if you have too many options, it's like the quarterback thing. You actually don't have one. There's no good ones. I'm going Suns in 5. If Paul George were playing it, I'd go longer, but I don't think I'd pick the Clippers even then.
I'm going Suns in 5, and I'm operating under the assumption that we don't see Paul George.
Yeah.
It's just where I'm at.